Welcome everyone to another Observability Clinic, Automation Without Boundaries with Dynatrace. It's the third of the Practitioner Guide series where we are talking about the new things we've announced at Perform. Today we're focusing on Dynatrace workflows powered by AutomationEngine. And with me today I have Christopher Hejl, who I had the pleasure to also see live at Perform in Vegas, where you did a great presentation, multiple presentations, I assume. But I remember very vividly the one they did with Andreas Berger. And I said, I want to have you do a clinic with me. Christopher, thank you so much for being here. Maybe a quick round of introduction from your side.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. As you said, I'm Christopher Hejl. I'm currently a product manager at Dynatrace. This summer, I'm coming up to 2 years with Dynatrace, but actually I've spent roughly the last 15 years focused on automation, specifically process and workflow automation solutions and building those. At the beginning, I was mostly focused on release management and deployment automation. Was working at the biggest automation pure player at the time, and was then focused on integrations for the CI/CD, and moved then on my focus on CI/CD in challenging and hybrid environments. Part of that hybrid was also Kubernetes setup, although that was still quite fresh, but we actually had more of the mainframe side still, because our main customers were financial industries and insurances, where a lot of the processing was actually in mainframe with GCOS and BIS 2000, together with Linux and Windows enterprise servers, and with Kubernetes and rich clients, and how to do a CI/CD with that kind of system. So this is where my focus was. And then after the company was acquired at some point with CA Technologies, I decided, you know what, I want to do that on my own. I want to do a new solution based on all that we've learned with the classical workload scheduling that's rooted in the late 80s and 90s, which has a lot of nice features operational-wise, with transparency and control, but combined it with a more modern approach, what we've learned, and then founded my own company for workflow automation, which actually grew quite nicely to about 10 people within 2 years. Yeah, and then Dynatrace knocked and said, that looks interesting, we should build something with that. And the product and the team joined Dynatrace back then. And since then I've been working on what I'm going to talk about today.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive and great to know all of the history and where all of your knowledge comes from, especially on the automation side. Folks, we will kick it off in a second. Just a reminder for those that are live, please use the Q&A feature here in the webinar. I will moderate. If you're watching this recorded, leave a comment when you see this on YouTube or when you see this in Dynatrace University, or just reach out to us or to your Dynatrace team. But with this, Christopher, the stage is yours. Tell us everything about automation there is to know in terms of automation without boundaries with Dynatrace.
Well, I don't think that we can talk about everything in an hour, but I think we can touch the main points. So first of all, I think also with Perform, we had a couple of new announcements, specifically around the new Dynatrace Experience, which also comes with additions to Grail, with a new way of monitoring with the new dashboards, as well as notebooks, which allow the collaboration and analysis of all the data that we now have, and with the big data lake and all the data in context to get more insights. And the main piece of today, the workflows, and specifically the workflows app that allows to automate based on all of these insights and information that we have. As you can see, available in Q2. If I check my watch, it's actually already Q2. So we're actually already in the process of rolling that out, and it should be available rather soon. So why create something there? Why create workflow automation? What's the challenge in the first place, right? I mean, we already have alerting profiles, we have some integrations, just beef those up a little, and it's going to be fine. Let's take a look at the real example, and I take again the example around apps security. So what is automation really? Any piece of software, anything is like you can say is automation, and we already have some stuff there, and actually quite a lot. As part of the Dynatrace solution, if you look at AppSec, we can already identify any security issues from all the stack that we monitor, immediately do automated risk assessments. We fire off some alerts. and I have this real-time coverage, and we can validate within seconds if this new deployment has fixed this stuff, and all of this happens in seconds. But in reality, for this remediations then to happen, for example, if you find a vulnerability, the whole process takes a bit longer because there is the remediation that needs to take place, the information that needs to be routed, the tickets that go from person to person, the information that we need to get out to actually know what the fix is, what the escalation process is. And this often takes then days and more realistically, often weeks. And at that point, it doesn't really matter what we do on the right, that it's within seconds, because it only matters until we deal with the problem. So we need to automate end to end the whole part to actually get down with the mean time to resolution, right? So why does it take so long? What's the problem there? Because usually, okay, we find something, we have an issue, we have all that information, and all we need is a ticket. Yeah, because ticket is our way to put something in dev, and then we can process that, and then our process starts off. And easy enough, it's just a ticket. In reality, you create a ticket, and then we realize, well, it's actually I want not one for vulnerability, but this vulnerability is present in multiple components, which of course is in different teams. So I need something for each affected component. And actually not always, but only if it affects certain things and not others, and only in certain environments, and only if it's tagged with certain criteria. And also not for everything, because like the low severity stuff, there's like too many things that we actually don't want to address, or maybe in a different process. And it already becomes more complex on what they really want to create a ticket for. And then, okay, I can take this ticket, can maybe route it, but the first thing that I do when I work on that, I get back to Dynatrace and see what it's really about and get some context information. It might be various things, but one of the first things is always, for example, logs, and we already had that information on what the context is, but then you just go ahead and I want that actually on the ticket, so I don't have to jump around and can analyze what this is about. I can actually push that in my process. And then you do that, and then you realize, well, actually, if it's a high severity, I want an instant message. But if it's the weekend, I need on call, and maybe I need to look that up somewhere else, and then I don't need it. Well, I need a ticket, but I need some other process on top. And if it's a really high impact, then I actually want an escalation process, and I need to inform the CSO. And so on and so on and so on. So it's all of these processes are never that simple, and this is just one example in one area. And if you look on our side, like the next team could have a slightly different process, and the next department could have a different process, and maybe different tools that are involved. And certainly from company to company, it's a bit different. So all of that stuff requires some custom logic, when exactly to do something, who is responsible, where to get that information, where to get the routing information, how to reach that person, maybe depending on what it affects, maybe depending on what the vulnerability is, maybe depending on the time of day, and so on and so forth. So that's really the complexities, that there's not a single right solution for everyone that we can just roll out and you click a button and now it's there, right? Because every environment is a bit different, every scenario is a bit different. And this is why we created the workflows to address that issue and to be able to automate these processes end to end. So taking a step back again from the security problem, you can generalize it a bit more. We're always really good at getting all of that information, and now even more with Grail and all the log information and all the context that we have, and also to put that in correlation and causation information, right? So we have solutions like Davis or AppSec, or now with DQL, we can actually make sense of all the data and understand that. But the story typically doesn't end there. You want to do something with that. The data is not just there to have that information. You want to act on that information. And this is the role of workflows. To be able to define your processes and also visualize, which I think is a very important point, because to automate the correct processes, we need to fully understand our process and standardize that. And how to visualize that and audit that is actually a great help for us. And obviously to customize it specifically to our environment, to our scenario, each person, each team, each department, so we can actually really automate that end to end.
Awesome, Christopher. So before you go, I mean, I want to recap something because I really like kind of your 4 pieces. I really liked your first of all, workflows are not easy. So we are used to the one agent. The only thing you need is an agent, and it does everything. It seems what you're telling me, there's no one workflow that does it all for you. Obviously, because every organization is different, every team within an organization, you have different things. I like these 4 questions: when, who, how, and what. And I'm now really looking forward to actually what we've built. And I want to have just a reminder, folks, if you have questions, use the Q&A feature. Questions are already coming in. I know, Christopher, we will handle questions as you go through the demo. There will also be more dedicated time at the end. But the first question that already came in, to make use of this automation, what level of access is needed on Dynatrace? As an application support guy, can I get enough privilege to do all of this? So I think maybe you can also cover who will have access to this. Are there any privilege, like which Dynatrace users will be able, but I think you will probably cover this anyway throughout.
Yeah, so Workflows is its own app, and you can control the access separately, independent from all the other permissions. So you can't get people access, only read access, for example, or even only execute access or write access separately, independent of all the other permissions that you would have in the platform.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's
and
see
with that, I actually want to go ahead and just show you what I'm talking about.
So that they know it's not just PowerPoint programming that we do so well, but real stuff.
Yeah, which is I'm actually not the greatest at PowerPoint stuff, but I can manage some. So I'm much rather in here, which is the new Dynatrace Experience, which also comes within Q2. So all of these new things that were announced that perform the workflows, the dashboards, the notebooks, and the new visual experience will roll out together and will be available this quarter. And you can then find the Workflows app under both what's new as well as on the automation section. So this workflow app is the way that allows you to manage and create and then monitor your workflows. So I'd say we just jump in and create a new workflow. Now, the whole execution and the workflows and what we actually do runs within the Dynatrace platform. So maybe you have seen one of the past clinics where we talk about the dashboards and the notebooks, where there's already some features that you can even run some custom JavaScript code to pull in some external data to enrich the data that we already have in Hejl and within Dynatrace. And it's the same platform and the same capabilities that we can also run within workflows. So if you have any script there, for example, it's compatible. And let's just do an example JavaScript in this runtime. And all of that is in part of the Dynatrace platform. You don't need extra runtime or anything like that. And in the workflows, we can, of course, run that little sample script that comes here out of the box. And I can live watch as my workflow is running. I can see various metadata, like who started it, when this was started. I can see the input, which was this script in this case. I can see if there's some result or some output of that data, so we can actually use that for some processing later on in the workflow with subsequent tasks. And we can also see some log of that task besides that. And we can already see maybe one interesting thing, that my script execution was on behalf of my user. So the workflows or the automation engine doesn't just act as its own system user and can do everything. It basically does the things for me, or impersonates myself as my user in my user context. And I can also decide if, first of all, if I want to allow that, and second of all, exactly what subset of permissions our workflows can do in my name. So similar, like if you create an API token, you can set the scope, you can set the same thing for the workflows. But maybe besides printing out some user information, let's do something more useful. And while I might pull in some data from outside as part of the notebooks, on automation, we typically want to push some data somewhere. And one of the simplest things I could come up with is call a webhook on Slack to send a message. So basically, you can do in here anything you can do in JavaScript, of course. And if I can find my Slack, we should find a hello world 514 for me. Yeah, which is actually the correct message. Perfect. So that worked out. And again, we can see the input, the result, and the log just logged out the HTTP response there.
Christopher, and I said I don't want to interrupt you, but it's first of all awesome already, and I already get a lot of feedback here. And I think this, what you show here, already answers some of the questions that came in. What type of integrations will be available what can I, for instance, send a WhatsApp message? Can I do X, Y, Z? And I think you just showed exactly that with JavaScript, you can basically do anything you want as long as you can, execute and trigger this through JavaScript.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a very simple example, but actually what it opens up is, I mean, this is just a fetch call, basically an HTTP call to some API, but most integration nowadays work like that and would open that up already. Next to that, of course, a lot of the automation use cases are actually within Dynatrace, where we want to manage or change in Dynatrace and get some data from Dynatrace. And for that, we actually offer inbuilt SDKs that we can use for all the different APIs that we have in Dynatrace, and within the automation, we also take care of the authentication with the same user permissions and so on. And as this example, and they can combine that, of course, in the same script. And in this example, I just run a DQL query and log that out without having to do finding the API or the authentication and so on. Where actually, what did I grab? Let me look up the error logs of the last 24 hours, which, well, it's more than one. So, but the thing is, I can do a little bit of JavaScript, namely exactly what Stack Overflow tells me and how to do, but that's basically where it ends already. And it's nice that it's super flexible, but there's certain things that I would rather have some inbuilt things, right? Or actions, as we call them. So
maybe one last thing though, because this also was a follow-up question. Where does this JavaScript run and get executed?
So this runs inside the Dynatrace platform. So yeah, it's not a separate runtime, and also in the Dynatrace platform you have a lot of configuration possibilities. For example, we have an allow list for external URLs, so you can actually tie down what URLs you're allowed to call, and otherwise we intercept it, and all of that stuff is inside the Dynatrace platform directly.
And it also runs in its own really security context. I think there will be more stuff that we need to cover on this in additional videos, but high performing, high scalable, high secure in its own sandbox. Your code runs with your security context, and your security context means whoever you are as a Dynatrace user that is triggering that workflow.
Exactly. So, of course, I don't want to just run JavaScript every day and all day and spend hours on Stack Overflow. But let's say in the example, I want to run the DQL script, right? So let's say, actually, I think I even have that open. Yeah. Let's say I'm looking at logs, and I have a notebook where I look at some log lines, right? And the error logs that we have, or maybe it by group of the last 24 hours. And I want to use that now in automation. So basically, I just want to take that and use that as part of my workflow. And I simply can do that with the run DQL query, which of course also then has the same experience. So it has the syntax highlighting, the auto completion, and so on and so forth. But let me just copy that over. So that's the same query that we had before. And let's actually change that to something more sensible. Batch error logs. And we can run that as well without any JavaScript and just the DQL in there. And we get the similar type of metadata there. With one result, we can see the input with the query in this case and the result. So in this case, we actually see the records as well as some metadata that I get back from the Grid API that I can then use to do some more fancy stuff on top of that. And now where the workflow part comes in is if we add more tasks to that, right? So let's say I not only want to get that information, but obviously want to send that somewhere. And we internally use Slack for pretty much everything. Let's use this connection. And let's do the demo notifications. And I want to send myself the number of the error logs count hours. And the question is now, how can I get this information from the previous task, right, from the fetch error logs? So there is an expression system And if you are familiar with Ansible or many other solutions, it's actually the same expression system that's used there with the same syntax. There's change 2 behind that. So you will feel quite at home there. And if you're not familiar, it's actually, I think, rather straightforward if you spend a couple of minutes with that. We also try to add as much auto-completion as we can to just say, you know what, I want the records there. I actually need to remove that, sorry. I want the records there, and this should pull out the record result from this task. Let's see what happens. If we look over here, can I zoom in a bit? Error logs in the last 24 hours, and well, we have the information there, but it's not exactly what I had in mind, how the message should look like. So we can, of course, adapt that and want to go, not have the whole records list, but in this case, I just want the first entry, and it was called, I think, error log count that we have here. So I only want that number. So let's do that again. And yes, this looks a lot more like what I had in mind. So this is actually rather simple, just grab some data and send some data, but there's actually a lot of use cases that under the hood always did the same thing, right? And we can stay there and make that a bit more complex if I look at other things that don't only get the error logs, but let's say all the logs by log level over the last 24 hours. We can do the same thing. And actually, let me switch over to, I think I have that already somewhere. The all logs, which is the same thing, get the log counts by all logs and then send a message. But I pimped up the message a little bit. It's also a thing where, as of now, with the integrations, like the message and how it looks exactly is, maybe you get a nice template, but maybe it's not exactly how you want it. And in here, you define the message completely on your own. So you can do all the emoticons and headlines and tagging and whatever you want directly there. So you get a message that yesterday prepared should look like this with the icons and the numbers important, whatever you want to have there, right?
And I think, Christopher, this is also a great example again, because earlier I asked you what type of integrations are available, and I said basic everything, but you then said some of the integrations, like what you show here with Slack, it makes more sense to build a Dynatrace app or a Dynatrace that exposes an action, like the Slack app is exposing a Slack action that is then making it so much more convenient because you have different Slack connections that you can configure and the messaging format, and it basically takes away a lot of the boilerplating work. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we also maintain that if in case Slack decides to do any API change and these kinds of things, so you don't need to take care about that. But one of the most important things is always the connections, which is basically centrally stored settings to know how to reach a remote system, where you can also manage who can access that and can leverage that in here. So I don't have to post any authentication information here. I actually have another example. So if I scroll down here, I looked again at the error logs, but in this case, I wanted to look at the hosts, like the problematic hosts, and identify who they're responsible and what's running there, and have a closer look and reducing that, right? So if we look at that one, how did I error logs by host? I actually added a little bit there. So again, I get the information, summarized it by host, and a lot more that I can do with DQL here. But now I said, you know what, I want to enrich that data with some other external data. In this case, I did it with some other Dynatrace SDKs, and I wanted to load the tags from the Dynatrace SDK and the operating system version, and look up in the tags if there's a team set on that, and put that on there, and basically add and enrich the data, and then send that information, right? And again, this data can come from anywhere. And if we do that, I print out the top 10 most problematic hosts with the team that's assigned to it and the operating system and so on. So this is actually quite simple. Get some data, enrich some data, send some data, but there's already a lot of stuff that you can do with that. Now, you can always run this manually, as I just did with run, but I think that's a bit boring. So I would say this is something that I might want to do on a schedule. So I actually, let me change that. I always jumped over this first step here, but you can add automatic triggers to your workflows. And one of those automatic triggers is schedule-based. So let's say I want this as type of a report, and pick a time. When do you want to get the report? You have an idea?
I think Monday, 8 o'clock in the morning is perfect for reports.
8 o'clock in the morning.
And
okay.
I am in Austria, so I think that would be, yeah, Vienna is probably good. But
Vienna, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
So yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, Vienna. So time zone is quite important, mainly because the issue with the daylight savings times. And if let's say, I mean, for myself, I'm currently also in Vienna, but if we do that for our colleagues over in New York, for example, it's kind of hard for me to tell when the correct time is in New York. But they also get the preview, and it tells me, for me, depending on the person who looks at it, what it is in my time zone. So 8 a.m. New York is for us in Vienna currently 2 p.m. And it will also show me the daylight saving switch. However, we just recently switched. So we had to take care of that. And I think you mentioned you want it on Monday only, right?
Yeah, please, because I don't want to get bombarded with too many reports.
Okay. So this is where the rules come in. It currently says every day, but we can also say, I don't have Mondays yet, but I can create my own Monday. Or did you actually mean the first working day of the week?
Of course, thank you so much. Because who knows because if it's a holiday on Monday, I guess then Tuesday.
Well, yeah, this week was actually holiday on Monday, right?
Yeah, Easter Monday. Yeah.
For us, this week was a holiday, and then I would get it on Monday, and nobody's going to look at that. So we can, this rules actually understand a wide variety of things. And you can also customize your own rules. So from first working day, last working day of the month, every second Thursday on holidays, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of options that you can create with your own custom holidays. And I don't know why, it's maybe of my background, but I just love scheduling, and I can talk days about scheduling and all the different options there. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give the highlights there. So we can do things like, okay, every second week on Friday, for example, but only if it's a working day according to my custom Hungarian holiday calendar, for example. Or Friday I clicked, but only in certain months of the year, and so on and so forth and so forth. You can also group those rules together. You can also exclude them. You can do an offset. Why would you do an offset? You might ask, well, maybe sometimes you want to do something every working day, but actually in preparation. So before, the night before every working day, right? Or after a holiday. So you can do before and after how many days you want that. So in this case, it would be Sunday to Thursday, right? Before. And then we get into crazier stuff like conditional offsets, where let's say we want to do a release every sprint, every 2 weeks, which is every second Thursday. But every second Thursday might also be a holiday. And then we only want to do that if it's also a working day. And if it's not a working day, then take the previous working day. So we'll automatically shift based on that. And there's a lot of things you can do with that. And working days, also the calendars, you can define what are working days, because Saturday might be a working day, Monday might be free, right? And the custom holidays and so on and so forth. And I promise that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about scheduling for now.
I remember you at Perform where you were going off about all the scheduling capabilities, and it's really cool. And it just shows the enterprise readiness of this. I think that's the...
Yeah, most people say scheduling, that's like old school, nobody needs it anymore. But in reality, like in practice, it's hard to find not something that runs on scheduling.
Yeah. I mean, actually, what the interesting thing is that Sean is just asking the question, can weekly consumption reports be automated for items such as CPU, RAM usage, free disk space? Right, that's exactly what this would be for. Yeah.
Yes. So essentially, with just what I showed, with getting some data from DQL and then sending that via some means, you can get all of that information. And in Grail, we already have a lot, and now we actually added what we announced at Perform is that we now add the metrics, right? So that's including the CPU saturation and so on. Yeah, so just with that, you can send all of that already. Okay, but there is actually something else. No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to change the trigger. So beside the time interval, and you can also cron schedule. This is mainly there if you have some cron somewhere around and you want to centrally manage that, you can just copy and paste your existing cron schedules in there. But what might be even more interesting, I think, is the event-based triggers. So I want to run a workflow in response to a certain event that happens was interested in Dynatrace. Now, the first things you would think about is probably like Davis problems, right? Because this is what we also offer currently if you think about alerting, notifications, and so on. So, of course, you can also do that with certain availability and also the affected entity tags and so on and so forth, and on close and open, so the same kind of thing. But in this case, you can now have this full custom workflow that runs in response to that. What's maybe, let's see if you have, yeah. And I can also check Grail, how often that would have triggered, how often that happened in the last hour, in the last 24 hours, in the last 7 days. And I can also get a sample event of what that looked like last time, so I can use that as context to build my workflow. Now, what's I think even more interesting is that we don't necessarily have to, I have not the permissions in here. Can I just show it somewhere else? No, let's maybe come back to that later. You can also trigger on Davis events. So you don't have to wait for a problem to happen or the things to be problematic, but you can trigger on that directly. So the Davis events are things like maybe high CPU saturation, maybe the disk size threshold is over a certain limit or reached, or a VM shutdown, and many more things. And you can basically remediate directly before it actually becomes a problem, right?
Also things like deployment events, configuration change events, all of these things, these are all Davis events that you can then react on.
Yeah. So I just do that real quick in here. So this all the shutdown, VM shutdown, and all the other things that you want to do, backup started, and you can filter with affected entity tags, with the tags and the values. So I don't know, only in and prod, for example, or important. So similar, like the current alerting profile works, right? So these are probably all the Davis stuff, but we also have a generic event trigger. So there is a bunch of events, right? There is this Davis events, there is AppSec events, there is RAM events, there is BIS events, there is deployment events, as you said, and you can completely define your own filter when these events come into our pipeline. So when we store this event, what you want to look at, if this event has certain information on it, I want to start this workflow. So let's say we have something here. I think we have the sample app. Yeah, so we have the sample app in here where we actually send out some BIS events every time someone buys an asset in our web shop. So we actually get this event here, so we can use that in our analytics and our dashboards. But we can actually trigger a workflow automatically on that to do some stuff in, I don't know, Salesforce or whatever we want to do, or send out a notification and say, hey, we sold something. Or coming back to our initial thing with the security vulnerabilities, I can handle and remediate those vulnerabilities by routing the information correctly. And of course, I have something prepared for that. And this should give a bit of a more, let's say, realistic scenario workflow with some more complexities in it, where we want to basically correctly create and route tickets and add information whenever Dynatrace finds a vulnerability. Yeah. So we can say this event filter only when vulnerability is opened up, and we see this event context that we don't have available to us. And what we want is, if you remember back at the beginning, we just want the ticket, kind of. And if you look down here, there is actually a part that creates tickets. But in reality, I also need to grab some more information, and I want a ticket for each component, if you remember, like affected entity, and I need to know who is responsible for that, and so on and so forth. And this flow actually highlights, I think, quite nicely how these out-of-the-box actions, like the Jira, create tickets, update tickets, Slack notification, send mail, combined with custom JavaScript, fulfill a real end-to-end use case. I started at the beginning with the custom JavaScript, even though it's probably the least exciting usually, because I just want to click and drag and that's it. But in reality, I think in the last 15 years, I haven't seen a single real workflow that didn't require some customization, because there's always something that's not standard. And maybe you have some custom application on your own and you need some custom scripting in that. And the ability to just mix those two together is really important so that you can do those flows. And what I came up here with an example is actually, you know what, we get this security problem and I get more information. I actually grab that and load the problem details. I get all the risk assessments and affected entities. And for those, again, load the tags, for example, using our own SDKs. And I'm looking specifically for a Slack tag or a Jira tag. And this is just how I did this example, right? This can be however you like from other systems or on other properties. And then I transform the data a little bit because I want to combine it into the same Jira project, whatever comes together, and prepare that. And then let me actually run that before I go into the details of the rest. Because here you can see, in contrast to what we had before, I can now run that and I can provide an event context, which of course is important because I don't want to now wait around until a vulnerability happens to see if my workflow works. I want to simulate that event. We'll go out and get the last sample event, and I can now change that and put something else in there, which in case I actually do, because I will change the problem ID here. Let me look something up. So we can take a look at what we're actually going to process. What do we want to do? What do we want to do? Prototype pollution. Well, pollution is a big topic nowadays, right? So let's do that. I'll take the problem ID from here, and I just simulate that this was open, that this event flow in, status open, this problem ID that I'm going to use to get the rest of the information. And I can simulate that and run it. Okay. You can already see, okay, loading details, we have the 5 entities, and I have a lot of information that I added here in the results. So you can also see, okay, there is this Jira project, all of that on the same Jira project, and a lot of affected entities that we have here. And we create a ticket. But not only that. I also get the Slack notification at the end. And the Slack notification I did that I actually get it for each affected entity, which I could route differently. So that's 5 times. With the prototype pollution, of course, with the links back, and also a link to the ticket that was created, which, if I look here, should also refresh. I think it was this one, right? 222. Prototype pollution with the same information in all the tickets, and it's there already. Wow. Now, the thing is, where is the complexity now? Well, the first thing I did is vulnerabilities might reopen or reappear fixed. And sometimes it's actually the ticket is still open, so I don't want to create and spam with tickets. So the first thing I do is actually search for existing tickets. And if that thing already exists, then I update. And for those that don't exist, I create those tickets, and then I send a notification for all the affected entities for all the teams. So actually, if I rerun this, and rerun then takes the same configuration, the same simulated event. Actually, I made some changes before, and I haven't tested that, so let's see what happens. If I actually find something, get existing tickets. Oh, we found the issue. That's already there because I labeled it, and I can find it with the GQL. And I did the update, and I did empty. No new ticket because there's nothing new to create. And if you look back at that, we actually updated it in this case with a comment, for example. But this already highlights a bit of the complexities that go into this simple example. And if I have different projects and different entities, it will create multiple tickets. So
but it also shows, and Christopher, I think there's a lot of questions that are coming in, and I think you just show how well thought through. This is not just a execute one task after the other and that's it. You have shown so many things, conditional executions. Tasks can produce different types of results that can be then taken by the next task as input, as condition. You have loops. You have retries that I've seen, right? You can we have out-of-the-box integrations. We have a lot of people are asking, what about integrations? What other integrations are planned? Are, for instance, integrations with ServiceNow planned? I'm not sure if we have a list of things that are on the short list. I know we have a roadmap. A lot of people, I think, are really excited about this. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, so there's a lot of things like the retry, automatic retry for things. Often when you talk to remote systems, the network might be down and then everything breaks and it's kind of annoying. So we can do automatic retries if you want. And in here we have, for example, some loops. Like we want to update for all the tickets that we found, right, with the same kind of expression system. So this actually runs multiple times with a concurrency that I can set and many other things. Actually, one thing that might be interesting, if you go back to the execution I had before, close that, you might have noticed that this, for example, escalate critical issues, that it seems broken as it's gray. Nothing happened. So the thing is, though, if you look here on the right, task conditions not met. But this wasn't run because certain conditions weren't met. If you look further down, there's one condition that says only run after get problem details was successful. That was okay. But then there was a custom condition that says, you know what, the risk score needs to be greater than 9 because only then I do the escalation. So, and this is this condition tab that you saw. We can have all of these conditions, like if something breaks before, only if success, or in any case, or in custom conditions with the same kind of expression system, where you can do basically also and or and all the logical operators and make it actually really, really complex there. So have this conditional flows as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder what is not possible. I mean, this looks like you can really do a lot of things. And Christopher, maybe one quick question because it came in as well. The workflow, you're obviously showing this here to the UI, so you can click it together really nicely. Like one of the questions that came in early, can this also be automatically created through the API?
Yeah, there's every functionality is based on API functionality. There's nothing you can do in the UI that's not exposed in the API because the only thing the UI uses is the API.
It's the API, yeah.
And there's no private API or anything like
that. Yeah. If you don't mind, I would like to I try to answer as many questions as I could already typing, but some I just want to validate with you. Great, you're already kind of browsing through the list of integrations that we have planned. I know not all of those that were shown will be available for GA, but we are working on a lot of those that are coming. So what I've read here is ServiceNow has been asked multiple times. MS Teams has been asked.
And those are like those two, I can't share the specific list, but those two are quite high up on the list.
Perfect, awesome. And then also somebody was asking about WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp has a web API, an easy one to use. So even though it might not be there coming from us in the next weeks or so, you definitely can just JavaScript and that's it.
So maybe I can address it a little bit more. So because WhatsApp, I haven't seen on the roadmap yet. It might come in the future, might not come. Maybe a partner adds that. So as you mentioned, with the custom JavaScript, of course, you can do anything that has a web API and you can do that yourself. However, at some point, you also say, well, I also need authentication and I need to put that there. If you need the same thing in like 10 different workflows and I copy that over, it's a bit annoying, right? What you can do is those actions that you can see here, this is not a closed ecosystem. There's nothing magic proprietary to Dynatrace behind that. Customers can create, partners and customers and everyone with this environment can create their own apps. And I think we have a session coming up also to go a deep dive how you can create your own apps with your own analysis, your own UI. You can basically create your whole complete experience within Dynatrace. And as part of that, you can also say, you know what, there's a certain function and that should be an action. So you can basically take that logic, put that into an app, deploy it, give it a name, and it pops up here for others to reuse without having to code anything. And in fact, that's something that I did here. I basically took the exact same script, put it into a file, put it into an app, added some metadata on top of it, and then I got this, get the enriched security problem. where it just can provide the problem ID, some default fallback channels and projects, and that's it. That's the exact same logic that I had here, which makes sense if I want to reuse that in multiple flows. But if it's a one-off, I probably just leave it in the JavaScript there. So even if it's something like WhatsApp, or maybe something that's like a complete custom solution that you have built that we will never create an integration for, you can create your own actions for reuse within your organization.
And as you just said, folks, we have dedicated sessions planned in the next week, focusing on how you can build your own apps in Dynatrace, right? Christopher, just a couple of additional ones. A question that is repeatedly coming, and we've answered it already, but I want to speak it out loud now. When is this, what you're showing here, coming to our customers? The answer is, and you gave it earlier, this is going to be rolled out actually as we speak, and then we start with the rollout in Q2, which is now, right? We do it by region, so we start with different regions, and then every sprint, every release we have, we roll it out to more regions. The detailed plan of the regions and how we are progressing on our SaaS rollout, I think this was given at Perform, and I'm sure there's a public website, like a news announcement. I think the US and Europe, I think, are among the first ones that will receive this, and then you will have access to this. And if you don't see it within the next week or two, then it will be there, in the weeks to come. Other things that were asked, and this goes back to something you showed in the very beginning. You showed the JavaScript with the node import. Is there a limitation on what modules can be imported, or can anything be imported?
Yes. So as of today, it's very limited. It's based on Dynatrace SDKs that are made automatically available. We're currently working on adding what do you call them? HTTP-based imports, basically, also with the Dyna runtime, and also on Node.js support, but it's not there currently. However, when you create, for example, your own custom actions, as I said before, with the app, there you can use any kind of libraries, and that's a way on how to get that in. The reason why we only go with web-based imports is because then again, the protection mechanism of the platform with allow listing the URLs where you want to allow that you can even reach out, you have a bit more control over there. So it's mainly a security question, how we bit by bit add more functionality there.
Also, another question that was just asked is, for MS Teams, for instance, why couldn't you just use the existing webhook integration we have for problem notifications? So I think we want to make one thing clear. What you know from Dynatrace with the problem notifications, that is obviously still there, but it's a very specific use case where we can trigger one external tool in case we detect a problem. What you've seen today and here with workflows, you can create any type of simple and very complex workflow and integrate any type of tooling. Right? What you see here is not your class, not what you know from just the Dynatrace problem notification. Problem notifications is just a one-way shot. That's what we have. Now you can create workflows that can be manually triggered, schedule triggered, or event-based triggered. And this is so much more powerful than what we had before. And to integrate MS Teams, Christopher, I think you said it, it's on the short list to build an integration here. And any other tool that you want to integrate that is maybe not yet there, we've given you the options. Custom JavaScript or custom application that you can build. Then there's another question. Is there a limit on how many workflows can or should be created? Is there any limit?
Well, it should be. It depends on what you want to manage. The workflow on its own is also artifacts and things that develop and grow over time, and you want to have a look at. So you probably well, it depends also with the use cases, so very much on your scenario. In terms of the limit on the number of workflows, maybe I'll come back to that in a second when I have some more information on the slides.
Cool. And then let's see. One question to your workflow here. Is there a way to add an action between two existing ones? I see you technically can because you have the add button. Can you also add something in the middle between two existing ones?
Yeah, so there's no, what you're looking at is like the convenience function, like push everything down there. I don't have that yet. Technically, of course, it's possible, and I can drag that, and now I can move that over, but it's a bit annoying, of course,
Okay, but you can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, nice. What else do we have here? besides the API, can this also be configured through infrastructure as code? Of course, right? We do have a Terraform provider. We do have Monaco. As everything is API based, you can configure all of this with the infrastructure of code tool of your choice. That's the beauty of it.
So if you maybe already use Monaco for your dashboard configurations, Monaco will have also support for the workflows.
Does this, Brian is asking, speaking of Grail, does this require us to have a Grail subscription?
Maybe let's just, if I can close out the presentation real quick to summarize that, because I also have some points on that. So just a quick summary of the different points, and then I'll actually go into that question as well. So what we have, or what we've shown, is basically we have this graphical workflows and this visualization, which is, again, as I think is very important actually for us to understand and follow the processes and to understand how to evolve those, which is also a key thing, right? I always would say start simple, start with just create a ticket and maybe a message, and then you realize, I need to look up if it's already there, and if it's open and not in progress, and then I want to update, and then I want to add the email. And that's also something the workflows give you, that it just can grow over time, right? Don't start with the super complex stuff. And the actions, as we discussed, we will provide actions and already have some, but we will continuously add more and more and more and maintain those integrations very high up the list, Microsoft Teams, ServiceNow, and a lot of the other things that you probably think about. But you also have the custom scripting, and you can create your own actions, as well as our partners can then distribute via the hub, custom integrations there. The event triggers, there's this built-in stuff like the Davis problems and the Davis events, where we can now react also on the individual events, but don't have to wait for a problem to bubble up, basically, but I can address it first. One example that we also have is automatic resizing of EBS volumes, which is a really nice example. But you can actually react to any event. Davis events, AppSec events, RAM events, deployment events, BIS events, any kind of event that exists inside of Dynatrace can immediately trigger this workflow. And my favorite topic of all, the schedules, but I think I've talked about this plenty with the different recurrence rules and understanding of business calendars and holidays and so on and so forth. So, and with this customization, the goal is really to have this end-to-end process, right? If you think back about the first picture, we get all this analysis and the first information, but actually to automate this triaging and creating the correct tickets and adding the information on there and putting that in the right to the right person, maybe do an on-call if it's on a certain severity and so on, to speed up the overall throughput time. It's very important that you think about that end-to-end. And now I thought maybe, since I've been doing it for a while, I'll just give with you, as I also said, like practitioner's guide on how to do automation, just some key things on how to get started, right? What do you want to automate? Well, you said it, you can do automate everything. Don't try to automate everything. If you try to do everything, you're going to do nothing. Pick something simple, pick something high value. Often it's in the high volume things, like the tedious things, the simple things. Start simple and then grow over time. This is how you start. Don't try to do everything at once. Start small, grow over time. The flow that I showed today, I didn't think about the whole flow that it works like that. I started with get the problem, create a ticket, send a notification. And then I realized, wait, I want the label on that. Wait, I want to see if the ticket is already there. I want to do the comment and so on. Yeah, I always say the perfect is the enemy of good. It doesn't have to work for everything. Nothing really works for everything with every case. There's always well, it doesn't work for that. Or if you do the resizing of the volumes, it doesn't work for the database instances because they require some other downtime. Well, then don't do it for that. Pick one simple thing that works end to end and that already should provide some value. And then you can grow from there, and then maybe you can expand it a little bit. And this is how you get the automation really rolling and provide some value really early on. Because at the end, I mean, Hejl principles apply. It's like developing these workflows is basically we're developing something. It's the same as software development. Go small, iterate, and yeah. And as you said, it's available in this quarter. Rollout is already happening. With all of these new announcements and features, the new experience, the dashboards, notebooks, and the additions in Grail, there's actually gonna be some new licensing options that hopefully make also a bit simpler than our existing ones, which will also cover the workflows. However, every customer will have access to workflows already with the existing license for free, however, up to 3 workflows. If you want to have more, this is then the point where we need to look at the license to change to the newer license that comes up with the new announcements today.
Awesome. Couple of additional things that I want to quickly highlight here. I'm pretty sure I get your name wrong. That's why I don't try to pronounce it. One of the questions was, can we, at scale to configure this? The question was, others have failed by just providing an UI-based approach. Are we providing something more automated? I gave the answer of we can do Monaco, we can do Terraform. The question though came back, you're offering a configuration approach instead of a code library approach. I think, with the way we do Monaco or the way we integrate with other configuration tools, there's also something like Crossplane and other tools that are providing a library approach on top of an API. But I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation, but I believe we solved this problem pretty well with the API and with the tools we already integrate with to scale the definition and configuration of workflows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe something to add, because every now and again I get the scenario where, okay, we want to automatically create those workflows because of that, and programmatically create those. And typically, every time we look at those, this concept never really survived, because in reality, the problem is that you're one level too deep, because the workflow is always the same, and then you just hard code some different values in there at some point. So if you're in that situation, I would recommend, in my experience, to take a step back, do one abstraction more, because the process itself, even if it's for different components or different teams and something is a bit different, there is an underlying process that should be the same, that can be abstracted. And in the individual actions then is where you have the differences, where we get the different value here, a different value there. But the overarching process typically should be the same in these cases.
That's a good point. And also the way you trigger a workflow, workflows get triggered, for instance, through an event. That means, put in the external data from that event, and then based on that data that comes in, your workflow can take, as you said, different paths.
Mm-hmm.
The Rob is asking, what recommendations do you have for testing a workflow before you turn it on? For example, you don't want to make production tickets until you know it works. Is there anything available or planned?
Mm-hmm. So it's mostly about the automatic trigger, right? You have the workflow, you want to manually run that and evaluate that, but it shouldn't automatically run when those problems come in. And you have the option to disable and enable the trigger at any point.
Perfect. Then I know you mentioned the licensing already, but there's a lot of questions that are coming in still on licensing. So maybe just to recap on how I see it, we are going to license. We give you 3 workflows for free with your existing license, and then you basically license per the number of workflows you are going to create. And it's going to be more and more information, I guess, is coming, as we are rolling this out. Again, this is going to be rolled out as we speak. We are starting end of April, and then we're going from region to region. SaaS, not managed. SaaS is important. This is for SaaS customers. This question also came in. Also, the recording is available probably by tomorrow, either on YouTube or on Dynatrace University, and there's more content out there already on the different topics that have been presented. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I can really highly recommend. I've posted this link multiple times already. The bit.ly one agent tutorials, or scan that QR code. That brings you to the YouTube channel. I can highly recommend a practical guide to DQL. That's the way you query Dynatrace data. And then the other 2 sessions that we already had on an overview end-to-end about all the announcements, And the last one is analytics without boundaries, that really focuses on notebooks and on dashboards. And what's coming, May 17th, build an app. This is where we really show you how you can build an app, and an app, as Christopher said multiple times, so they can also provide an action that you can use in the workflow. All right, well, a lot of thanks coming in. Christopher, did I miss anything? Did I say something wrong? Just feel free to.
No, maybe just one addition. What does it mean, 3 workflows? That's just the number of workflows that you've defined. Like the security vulnerability workflow is just one workflow. And it's not limited in how complex it is, how many tasks it has, how often it's executed. And you can also change the workflow in order to try that out and say, okay, I want to try something different. You can just delete it and add another one, for example.
Then there's a question coming in. Will the new feature include predictive analysis based on any type of metric? Predictive analysis has already been shown in the analytics without boundaries feature, I think. So we have predictive analytics in the Dynatrace platform in general. You can do this on any type of data point. And I think that's the cool thing about this. And then you can obviously also trigger workflows on it.
Yeah, or you can trigger the predictive analysis in the workflow. We actually have an internally example where we use that in order to predict if next week any of our disks go over a threshold. So we can do actually a prediction on what this needs to resizing beforehand based off that.
Then what else do we have here? Thanks. That's great. There's one interesting thought. Could one manually trigger the workflow? I mean, we saw yes, but the interesting thing here is, could one manually trigger the workflow from within a problem in Dynatrace via a button, for example, so that they can do it like on demand from the context of a particular screen?
That's something we've discussed, that we would like to have. If you create your own app, for example, you have the possibilities to connect to workflows. You can create or run workflows directly from there. You can add buttons for specific workflows or certain criteria that you want to list on. So the possibility definitely is there. And where exactly we want to include that, if it's on a problem already, where I don't know that right now, but the possibility is there, and you can use it in your custom apps as well.
Then somebody says the Dynatrace account is disabled. I think we are connected on LinkedIn. I think you're not a Dynatrace customer, but just looking into this. Which I would say Dynatrace customers have access to the university. If you're just learning it, I can just suggest maybe sign up for another trial to then get access to this again. What else do we have here? Q2, everything we mentioned today is starting to be rolled out in this quarter, in SaaS, region by region. I believe actually in the practitioner's guide to a day without boundaries with Dynatrace, in the end, Michael Winkler, who is one of our go-to-market product managers, he actually gave an overview of the individual regions, when and how we are rolling this out. With this, wow, there's a lot of kudos. Thank you so much, Christopher. You did an amazing job with
Thank you.
First of all, building a great product, capabilities, and I think we will need to have you back because there's so many other different areas, I think, where we can go a little bit deeper on the power of workflows. And with this, thank you, everyone. A recording will be up soon. Christopher, I think it's time to say goodbye.
It's time to say goodbye. Well, thank you very much for having me, and will gladly come back if you will have me again.
Definitely. And enjoy your wellness day, because tomorrow in Dynatrace land, we have our wellness day, which means we get a day off and we'll enjoy it. And recording will be up soon. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.